What's good, y'all? It's your boy Paragon back here with another video. Before we get into this reaction, I just want y'all to go down, subscribe, like this video, right? Subscribe to my channel so you can get all of my reactions that I'm gonna be posting, all of my vlogs and whatever else I post to the channel. You know what I mean? So y'all can see all of that when I first drop it and whatnot. Like, comment, and subscribe. Do that now. And let's get into this video, man. Let's get into this video. So what we're gonna be looking at today, we're gonna be looking at can Black Lives Matter and law enforcement see eye to eye? We're gonna be looking at this. We're gonna see what this is about, man, because boy, oh boy, this is a hot topic. Let's get this.
The phrase all lives matter was derived from Black Lives Matter to subvert Black Lives Matter, and I won't come here and sit down and say that that's okay.
I gotta stop it real quick. Like, the fact that people who say all lives matter is like, it's like the dumbest shit in the world, because if you think about it, all we are saying is Black Lives Matter. We're not even saying like Black Lives Matter more than another, person. You know what I mean? We're not saying Black Lives Matter more than white people, more than Asian people. We're not saying that. We're just saying Black Lives Matter. And you feeling offensive by that is like the most idiotic thing to feel offensive about, because we're just saying that we matter. We're not saying we matter more than you. We're just saying we matter. But let's get it on this.
Can I have my law enforcement go to the left pool of light? Can I have my Black Lives Matter supporters go to the right pool of light? I regularly fear for my life.
I'm an armed patrol officer, so I do respond to burglar alarms. So if someone breaks into someone's house, have a gun, I would have to respond to that certain situation. So I do fear for my life in a way, I guess you can say.
I do something that I think every black man, every black person in this country, many people of color have been trained to do, and that's when a law enforcement officer gets behind me and I'm driving. I'm making sure I'm signaling, I'm checking my speed. I'm thinking of all the different legitimate ways that you could stop me. And in that moment,
I'm not gonna lie, he like 1,000% on that one, cause that's what every time you see one, something goes off in your head to make you gotta sit up straight, you gotta act a certain way so that you not doing anything to, or like it's just like that when like it's fucked up that it's like that, but it is like you got to sit up and just like be this way, be on edge every time you see a cop, you know what I mean, which is crazy.
I recognize and I realize that I'm not a scholar with a bachelor's in political science, a bachelor's in sociology, a master's in public policy. In that moment, I'm just another black man to that officer, and that scares me.
I maybe could have stepped forward. I feel scared for my life when I'm at work. Often, when you get pulled over and all the thoughts and things that are going through your mind, or where when I pull a car over, I'm thinking about where I'm at on the highway, how I'm going to pull this vehicle over. Did I run the plate? Did it come back to that vehicle? Am I buckled in? Am I not buckled in? Because most officers are shot and killed during traffic stops. And as I approach, I put my hand on that car to leave my handprint, because if I'm shot and killed, that person is further incriminated by the evidence of my prints being on their car. But I don't feel afraid for my life as a citizen. But at work, I definitely do, and that's a choice I made.
I choose not to live in fear. If the question was, do I feel less safe now than I did 5 years ago, I would say yes. And I think that that's because we have rampant social chaos that's expanding. And I think that that's playing a large role in a lot of the trends that we're seeing.
What do you mean by social chaos?
Out of wedlock birth rates, statistically, that sets a child back 5 times more likely to be poor, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison.
I mean, the chaos that I'm seeing more recently is white men walking into schools with AR-15s and slaughtering people.
Right. Talk about it, because it's crazy. Like, everybody always want to combat, like, oh, black on black crime, but like, y'all white little kids is going up in fucking schools, elementary schools, all types of schools, and shooting up people. Like, kind of shit is that? Even with that guy in the movie theaters, man, dressing up in a fucking Batman costume, shooting up a movie theaters. Like, you feel me? Like, it's like in their eyes, that person's just a disturbed a disturbed young man that needed to seek help or needed guidance and whatever. But let that be a black person. He's a thug, he a criminal, he's all of this. You know what I mean? He doesn't even need help, which is baffling to me, man.
Yeah, and that is what you're seeing, and what you're not seeing is the dozens of homicides that occur in Chicago on a daily basis, and that speaks to certainly a media that's desirous to push an agenda and a narrative that factually doesn't bear out. There is a massive disparity between black crime and white crime at large, and obviously that's going to lead to accelerated interactions with law enforcement.
Or is it the criminalization of black people? When you have more police officers patrolling a concentrated area, then of course you have more stops. You have more, situations where police officers say, oh, they didn't signal, and then when I pulled them over, I pulled all occupants out of the car. I searched the car. I found this gun allegedly buried somewhere, and all of a sudden now you have a crime. As a public defender, the reputation is that, I'm going to lose most of my cases. I have won far more cases than I have lost. My name is Elisa Blair. I am African American. I'm also a criminal defense attorney. As a public defender, I've seen the mistreatment of my clients. I see the disproportionate incarceration of black and brown people, and I see the excessive force used in arrests.
Police should be given more resources.
No.
I think police should definitely be given more resources so that they have other options besides killing people. Officers should have the resources available to them to handle a situation without casualty on either side.
Yeah, I mean, as an officer, I appreciate hearing that from a member of the public and from a public defender, and can speak to it for myself and my department and what I've seen in other departments in the area, and know that we need more resources and different types of training, communication techniques to de-escalate situations, and different types of least force option techniques. But as a small woman, I also want to be able to physically protect myself, and it's a hard balance.
The largest expense for almost every municipality and county is public safety. There's plenty of money. What we don't have is enough implicit bias training. The things that we carry about ourselves that define how we interpret who we're interacting with.
Our judgment.
We don't have enough contextualizing of the communities that you're serving. Draw officers from the communities from which they serve. That way, when they go back and they're policing their own community, that's deeper than just the race of the officer.
So you think that black police officers need to be trained to be more sensitive to the black community? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think black officers that are policing black communities should come from those communities. And I think a white officer who comes from
Correct him, because he needed that.
That community might even be more effective than a black officer from somewhere else.
I agree, and I think that that's a great point, which is that an officer, a white officer, a black officer, a female officer, a Hispanic officer could be just as good as any other or better. And that's because there are things other than skin color. And I think that what's so concerning about this dialogue is that it is pushing us further back into black communities, white communities, when really I thought that the goal of Martin Luther King was that we were going to be moving to a society where we were being judged by the content of our character. If we keep moving further into identifying based on our groups, I think that we're doing a disservice to his message, which I think was very powerful and that united the country in many ways.
But not at the time. In Martin Luther King's time, white folks hated him. It causes me to bristle and have an emotional reaction whenever somebody says, you know, black people are killing folks 50% in violent crimes, and then says Martin Luther King united the country. Martin Luther King would be down for Black Lives Matter.
The next statement is, I believe that all lives matter.
It's a little bit surprising. Below all of this stuff, below skin, deeper than all of this, there is a intrinsic God-given life that's put inside of all of us. I think that it's concerning that any movement would reject the fundamental premise of that while preaching for equality.
Exactly.
At that point, you're really not an equality movement if you're really only interested in speaking to your specific group.
I truly believe in, I agree with everything that you say. Everyone deserves life, and I believe that, you know, life is a gift. Plain and simple, all life counts.
Yeah.
All life matters. All life deserves a chance.
Yeah, I think that especially in this platform, but also in the world and the country that we live in today, stating that all lives matter takes away from the inequality that's happening in the world.
Right. Just by saying, like I said earlier, just by saying that, it's like a totally different thing. You can't, like, you're combating Black Lives Matter to say all lives matter. Like, what? Like, you're saying it because I'm saying Black Lives Matter. You would, like, it boils my blood that we have to talk about these things like this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so tedious, because if it's like, if I say this right here is good, this is good. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that all bubble tea is doesn't matter. I'm just saying that I like this one, and this one matters too. You feel me? Like it's a difference of stating, if we were preaching, oh, Black Lives Matter more than this, Black Lives Matter more than that, then I will kind of understand, you know what I mean? But we're not saying that. We're just saying that Black Lives Matter. Like, at the end of the day, like, what is there to combat? You feel me? Because if Black lives don't matter, where are we in this society? You know what I mean? Because we built this country, to be honest with you.
Of course, all lives matter.
It negates the fact that something has to be addressed. And if you don't address it and you don't recognize that there is a problem that has to be changed, then you never fucking change it.
But that's not our intention. Our intention was just to answer a simple question.
But it's not,
Right.
not everything is the same.
question was
And not everything is the
framed as,
same.
do all lives matter?
Exactly.
If you ask me if all lives have intrinsic value, if all lives are valuable, if all lives are worthy, I would have said hell yes and would have been the first one in my chair. All lives matter is a specific phrase similar to Blue Lives Matter and anything else that mattered after Black lives were exclaimed to have mattered, to detract, to appropriate, to subvert the message and the framing and the narrative that's being brought to us by the Black Lives Matter movement. So I don't think anybody here in this room thinks that any life is less worthy than another's. But the phrase all lives matter was derived from Black Lives Matter to subvert Black Lives Matter, and I won't come here and sit down and say that that's okay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Speak it, bro. 100% right.
I feel like we're just kind of going into the weeds here. The question wasn't Black Lives Matter, it was just a simple question. Do you believe that all lives matter?
You don't think that that's an interesting phrase?
Connotations.
Is that a phrase that you've used
I think that
quite
you
frequently before?
I think, not really. I think that you can attach
Right,
whatever
because
you
it
want to
started
it.
right
And
after
that's the
Black
thing, is when I
Lives
try and
Matter.
step back from whatever sort of identity political stuff we have going on, and I try and deal with things head on based on reality. And when someone says to me, do you think all lives matter? I answer unequivocally yes every time. The same way if you ask me if Black Lives Matter or female lives matter, I will answer the same way.
Do Black Lives matter?
Yes, they do.
I had conflicting feelings about coming here today.
For me, I was conflicted because I don't feel like I should speak for Black oppression, but as a white woman, I think that I can be of value to other white people who may not understand. I'm Sandra Cruz. Well, I'm from the 60s, and I went to jail a lot for fighting for women's rights. And as a human being, I think it's important that I speak out and speak up for injustices.
I'm feeling conflicted now as someone who steps into the law enforcement side as if we are on opposite sides. I am a law enforcement officer and a Black Lives Matter supporter. I find myself searching for what to do and how to make a difference, and I've had moments of thinking about leaving the force. I finally had a realization that this gives me an opportunity to have a different angle as a white woman and also as a police officer to potentially make a difference, even if it's just with changing myself.
I didn't hesitate. I've been a civilian my entire life, and I consider it an honor to have an opportunity to provide voice for law enforcement and the men and women that serve our communities. I think it's fundamentally important for society to respect law enforcement. Men and women that serve our communities with tremendous honor and distinction end up getting a bad rap. I think that that's very harmful.
I think that it is important. I think it's imperative to speak whenever you have an opportunity to. And I think that all of us in whatever movements we're part of or whatever belief systems we're part of should use our gifts.
You know, de-escalation training is sitting in a room like this with a PowerPoint and walking officers through scenarios, and nothing in a scenario is ever going to be like the real world. In defense of officers, like only those of us that walk in the shoes of having a badge and a gun and being in these high stress situations can really articulate what it's like to make these split-second decisions with our training. Officers need to be in these types of discussions, owning their shit and being like, I did this wrong and I have this prejudice, and how can I sit with people who can teach me and change me?
See, but what happens is you get the people that have, been really growing up that way their whole lives, and now they're 30, 40, and they don't even want to care about sitting in a scenario like that because they're not open-minded to that dialogue. They have that one way of thinking. Yes, you can change people's minds, but there are a lot of people that are within that badge that just don't want to see that other way. They're like, okay, I'm not doing that. This is how I feel. This is how I already been doing it. So they're gonna continue to move that way. You know what I mean? So yeah, you will get some people, a lot of people that will sit in that chair with you, but it's really about pushing forward and another narrative. I get that. If you're a law enforcement officer, you should be mandated to be in those in that kind of like room, sitting in and actually talking to people about how their behavior at work is, you know what I mean, and how and really try to get down to the root of what their prejudice is and everything. So I think that could be a possibility, but I think it would have to be something that has to be that you have to do at each day. Every day when you come in, you have to sit down. Somebody has to mediate that, you know what I mean? And really, I think somebody has to talk, because it's getting out of hand, man.
This is what I think is sort of dangerous about a conversation like this, is that really the only thing that I want law enforcement being trained on is the law. Okay, this nebulous conversation about thinking about how I think about things, and
Some
right?
of us in law enforcement think of ourselves as social workers with a gun.
And that's concerning because your job is to enforce the law.
As someone in the field who wants more de-escalation training, it's not because I don't believe in a lot of the laws that I enforce, and it is my job to enforce the law. I'm not a law warning officer. That's not what I signed up to do. But we are given the discretion to make choices. And that's why we need more training, because we're human beings, just in my perspective. And I appreciate your support of law enforcement and your perspective.
Yeah, and I appreciate your perspective as well as your real service that you've done. So, and I don't want to, our disagreements certainly don't take away from my respect and admiration for your service.
Well, thank you
I
for your
think we
support.
all respect the service of everyone who works to the service of others. I don't think anybody in this room is against individual officers. The conversation is to take a step back and recognize that this institution is a relic of Anglo policing from European culture, but also slave catching and deep rooted racism.
I love that he built that he said that, because that's what they're built for. To catch runaway slaves. That's what the police were founded upon. So come on, man. And who was it saved? Black people.
In American policy, and we need to take that step back and recenter this conversation on the fact that it's bigger than just an officer.
I think part of the problem is that we're still so segregated. Where do we go to have these conversations? Where do we go to learn from each other, to break down the stereotypes? It's systemic, and I'm so thrilled that there's a Black Lives Matter movement. It's really exciting.
Guys, thank you so much. I know this hasn't been an easy one, but I appreciate your time. Feel free to continue the discussion if you'd like outside. And thank you so much.
Really, it's a pleasure. I really appreciate you speaking your truth and hearing mine as well. I really appreciate all of you guys. Okay,
Likewise,
real
yes,
pleasure.
thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Jason.
And I'm Dan.
And
All right, y'all. That's the end of that video, but I just want to say, to all my black folks and, everybody in this world, keep your head up, man. Around these tough times, even with this coronavirus still popping off, you know what I mean? Like, comment, subscribe as well. And just, broaden your horizons on what you think, you know what I mean? Broaden your horizons, what you think. Everybody's norm is not your norm. Just look at it from that perspective, you know what I mean? You could be living your everyday life and not worrying about a police officer at all. But like, I can go down the street literally and I'm watching my back, and not in a good way, because when you see the police, it's kind of like you get scared. You know what I mean? You don't want to feel that, you know what I mean? Nobody wants to feel that. Nobody wants to be in those predicaments. Nobody wants to be afraid of the people that are, I wouldn't even want to say the people that are the people, because they're not there to protect us. To be honest, they weren't made for that purpose. Yeah, they say that now, but they weren't made for that purpose. But in this society that we are in today, they're supposed to be there to protect us, and we shouldn't be looking at police and be afraid of the police, because we don't know what would happen if I get pulled over, if this happens, you know what I mean? So like, comment, subscribe, y'all. It's your boy Paragon. Peace. I am